Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me.
Where's your crown?
Where's your candle?
That was the candle.
That's
It
a
was
good
a
point.
tea candle. Anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked on to the point with
Skip.
and the king. Oh my goodness, guys. This is the greatest birthday present as of this recording when we upload it. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for being here to celebrate my birthday with me. It's amazing to have the one and only Robert Misovic, one of the greatest basketball minds I've ever encountered. If you guys want to find him, in his words, Google me. Love that line. We have the mouth of the North, the one and only Andrew Reece from the Reece Report joining us as well today. This is going to be a hot topic, guys. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy this because Andrew, let's get right into this. And by the way, guys, make sure you go down there and click subscribe. Let us know. Reece, when it comes down to the NBA players of all time, who is the GOAT?
Okay, well, I've got Michael Jordan, his airness, MJ, the guy that you want to be like. All right. I really don't think this is a debate, but for the show, I will make my point about this. Okay, so in an 11-year span, Michael Jordan won the scoring title 10 times, something that's unheard of, especially for a guard. 9 times he was an all-defensive player, so he does it on both ends.
Yes.
He won Defensive Player of the Year, which I will get into later. 3-time steal leader, 11-time All-Star in that period. During that time, and this is for Brian, 5 60-point games, 32 50-point games, 165 40-point games. Now, I'd like to point out a couple of seasons that I particularly studied and enjoyed when I was watching him as a kid. In his second full season, Michael Jordan averaged 37 points a game. In that season, he was the first player ever to record 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season. So think about that. He averaged 37 a game and still did it on the defensive end. It's unheard of.
Yep.
The following season, when everyone thinks, nowadays that Michael Jordan was just a scorer, he averaged 35 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, and was Defensive Player of the Year. That's in season 2 and 3 of his career. So Michael Jordan was the best player in the world, and from pretty much the first time that he was in the league until he retired. In the playoffs, he averaged 33.4 points a game, which is 4 higher than any player in history. He also, in his first finals against the Lakers, when everyone said he couldn't win, he averaged 11.4 assists per game, something that's been said that he can't really do and it's not a part of his game. Then against the Suns, which is the finals that I watched from opening tip to the end, against Charles Barkley, who was the MVP with a team that had a better record, he averaged 41 points a game.
Took that personally.
He averaged 41 points a game, which is an NBA record, with 8 rebounds and 6 assists to win that series in 6. One of the best series I've ever watched in my life. Now, from a standpoint of points, he averaged 30 in his career, which is an NBA record. It's more than Wilt. Had he not played at age 39 and 40, it would be higher. Also, had he taken more threes like they do nowadays in the no-touch NBA, he would have averaged more points and he would have had more in his career. Probably would have had more assists as well and more rebounds. He only shot 1.7 threes per game in his career and only made 0.5 of them. I will bet anyone that if he played in today's NBA, he would have shot more threes and he probably would have averaged over 40 points a game in his career, especially in the no-touch NBA where every little touch is a foul. Just ask James Harden. Now, to end this off, if we look at all the great players in the NBA, and I'm not going to mention any names because I know other people are going to talk about other players. If we just look at career accolades, Michael Jordan has 18 of those. It's 2 more than any player in history. 6 Finals MVPs, 6 MVPs,
Yep.
regular season MVPs.
Yep.
One defensive player of the year.
Yep.
Yes. And 6 titles.
Yeah, I thought it was 5 MVPs.
Right. 5 MVPs, 6 finals MVPs, 6 titles, and 1 defensive player of the year for 18 total individual accolades. It's 2 more than anybody else. So everyone uses the 6 titles, 6-0 and with 6 MVPs. It's a great argument, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. That's my case for Michael Jordan being the best player of all time. I think if you compare his dominance with anybody else's dominance, you're hard pressed to argue against it, especially considering he's a 6'6" guard playing in a league that was way tougher to play against, where they knocked people around and there was hand check rules in play, and it was also the era of the big man. So that's my argument. Who's up next?
That's true. Skip, I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
Now, since we're speaking about the GOAT, whose name do you want to bring into this GOAT debate?
So, first of all, there's no disparaging Michael Jordan. What he did was amazing. He was undoubtedly one of the top 2 or 3 players of all time. The question is whether LeBron has passed him at this point in his career. And I think there's a really good argument that LeBron is right there next to Mike on the Pantheon, maybe even a half step above him. He's not a full step above him, but maybe even just that little inch above him. It's really close. It's a toss-up between those two. I think if you're comparing it to baseball, they're Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth, and everyone else is chasing them. So I think, yeah. So LeBron.
Barry Bonds took steroids.
All right. So let's get into it. So obviously everyone knows about the resume. I don't really have to get into it. 4-time champion, 4-time MVP, 17 All-Star games, 13 All-NBA first teams, 3rd all-time in total scoring. Now, I think you were kind of talking a little bit more about playoffs. I think if we're talking about greatest of all time, playoffs factors into it, but we need to look at the whole body of work, right? Like regular season. So I went back and I looked at some of the numbers. So you just look at his your basic box score stats: 27 points per game, 7.4 rebounds per game, 7.4 assists per game. He's top 250 in all 3 of those stats, which neither Michael or Kobe are. He's basically top 25 in assists and points. It's only rebounds that he lags behind a bunch of big men. Now, I was kind of looking at how would you make this comparison, right? Because there's a lot of advanced stats out there. You can really sort of dig into them, but it's going to be a little bit of Greek to some people. So one stat that I pulled up was box plus minus, right? Which is essentially plus minus over the course, like essentially a plus minus stat in terms of how many points added this player gives a team versus, say, the average player. So for his career, Michael Jordan is a plus 9.2 and LeBron is a plus 8.9. Now, I know you're going to get into this in a minute, but you want to know what your boy Kobe is? Plus 4.6. So not even in the conversation. Like, not even in the conversation. You're talking about 1A, 1B, and like 14 or something. But anyway, so like I said, not everyone's going to really understand what all these box plus minus is. Like, I can't pretend to understand what goes into it. So I thought I'd sit back and just break down your basic stats: points, assists, rebounds. Add them up. I weighted assists a little bit more because if you think about what each thing is, right? A point is a point. A rebound is worth about a point because it's a possession, and a possession is worth about a point. But an assist is at least a 2-pointer or a 3-pointer. So if you just take those numbers, you just add them up, it's very simple. It's not advanced statistics at all. It's just a very simple thing. I added that up, and in terms of points created per game, for LeBron, I got 51.4 points per game. For MJ, I got 48.5 points per game. And for Kobe, I got 41. Now, the gap between LeBron and MJ kind of shrinks a little bit if you start adding in things like turnovers and steals and stuff like that. But just a very basic take-all number. Not advanced at all, but I just thought it'd be fun to see what that came out to. So that was sort of what I did. And everything I did sort of just brought me back to this point where it's MJ and it's LeBron and it's everybody else. And I think that's the conversation right now. That's really all there is to it.
Skip,
Yeah.
do I have to be the Stephen A. Smith and you got to be the Max Kellerman and I got to kick your ass off the show?
Well, go
Because
for
what
it.
you just said was blasphemous.
Hit me with numbers.
What are you talking about? I don't need to talk about numbers when it comes down to this. Kobe Bryant is by far a superior player when it comes to LeBron James. What are you bringing LeBron James in this GOAT debate for? I see you guys out there, I see you bronzexuals, just like Skip, out there. You guys weren't watching basketball in the 80s and the 90s. You guys only know when LeBron's big, heavy-ass shoe came out here. I see you guys out there saying that, oh, LeBron is the man. LeBron's great. He's speaking into tequila. He's drinking his wine. There are many factors. We can talk about numbers. That's fine. But numbers are for Joe Schmoes. Any dude can go on their laptop and pull up the numbers and look up the box score. That's fine. There are other intangibles into saying who is the greatest. Now, Kobe is the carbon copy of Michael. I concede that Mike is the man. Kobe is a carbon copy. He's not there. He wasn't fully there, but he did strive to that. And if anyone's going to call Mike the GOAT, Reece, I will say Kobe is next in line. He played the same style. He played the same game. He did what he had to do. And not to mention, he did have that integrity. He did have that competitive tenacity, that Mamba mentality that we all talk about. He did play a lot of defense that LeBron doesn't play. I see a lot of highlights where LeBron's going like this, looking at somebody else going up, quitting on games. Kobe would never quit. Torn Achilles, still shooting that. Skip, what in the bloody blue hell are you talking about? Okay? And Kobe would take control in a game. He would take over that game. The game might be insignificant. Like, come on. Look at what he did to the Dallas Mavericks. 62 points to 61, where he scored all 62 in 3 quarters. Are you kidding me? Look at what he did to your Toronto Raptors. 81 points, second of all time, behind Will Chamberlain. Look at what this man did. This man actually took it upon himself. What did Allen Iverson say? He said, hey, man, what are you doing tonight? AI said, I'm going to the club. Kobe said, well, I'm going to the gym. That's that work ethic. LeBron doesn't do that. This ain't Taco Tuesday. This ain't no banana boat. This ain't about fun and handshakes. And one of the reasons why I love Kobe is because, I don't know if you guys remember this, when they had the All-Star game here in Toronto and that ambassador was announcing everybody, Kobe was the only player that did not shake his hand. Because it's not all about handshakes and it's all about fun. There is actually a quote that Kobe said, which I would love to share with you guys, where he said, it's a choice that you have to make. You can't have friends and be buddy-buddy with everybody throughout the course of your career. You have to decide to be great at what you do. And that's just not a lesson in basketball, that's a lesson in life. And Robert, I'm pretty sure you already know where I'm going with this one, because there is other players, multiple players out there that I would put above LeBron James, because he is not the best small forward. I will say Larry Bird, but when it comes down to it, Kobe did give his respect to the one and only
Duncan.
There you go, brother.
Okay, first of all, I want to correct you on one thing. You said Kobe Bryant never quit. You don't remember the Phoenix series?
Yeah, he definitely quit in Game 7. I remember that. I watched it.
Yeah, so he has quit. And
He didn't shoot the
I
ball
stand
on
corrected.
purpose.
Yeah,
On purpose did not shoot the ball.
to make a point, and
Right.
LeBron's done that a couple of times as well. So
Yes.
you know, look, first of all, I want to say, when you told me I had to pick somebody other than MJ, I had to rack my brain a little bit, because that's a tough argument.
Yep.
I don't see any way that you can make an argument for LeBron versus MJ or Kobe versus MJ. This is not a debate.
Nope. it's not.
MJ is 100%. The only way that you can make the debate against MJ is by going another angle, and that's where I'm going with this one. So my pick is Tim Duncan. And initially, I didn't necessarily believe this, and then I thought about it a lot over the last month, and I've actually come to the point where I actually believe what I'm about to say to you, okay? So first, a little backstory, okay? When I was 12 years old, I bought NBA 2K, and I think I was 12 or 13 when 2K came out, and Duncan was 96 in the game. I really didn't follow basketball at the time, and I just wanted a basketball jersey so people would stop teasing me about like what I was wearing. So I went to the sports store and I wanted to buy a Rasheed Wallace jersey, but it was like one of the more expensive ones, like $129 Blazers jersey. And they had a champion Tim Duncan jersey for $69, and I ended up buying that with my first paycheck. It was my first job. It was the first thing I bought with my own money. And it was a Tim Duncan jersey, and I wore it every single day for almost 2 years. And to the point where people started calling me Duncan. So me and Duncan go back a little bit. Okay. And I started following this guy a lot, and I started I started listening a lot to his interviews. And, you know, here's my argument for Tim Duncan. If I started an NBA team today and I got to pick any player for the next 20 years, and I wanted to actually win basketball games and I wanted to develop a winning culture, I would pick Tim Duncan. So y'all threw up a whole bunch of stats. I'm going to throw some stats at you too. 5 championships. We all know that one, you know, but here's a couple of stats you might not realize. He's only one of 3 players in NBA history to win 1,000 playoff games. He's the only player to be named to the all NBA first team in 3 different decades. He's never missed the playoffs. Okay. Also, there's so much more to greatness than scoring. Y'all talking about 81 points, 62 points, all this stuff. But that's not, like, Tim Duncan was not the guy who wanted to go out and score 50. And believe me, he could have scored 50, 60. He could have scored whatever he wanted. He was unstoppable. But he chose not to do that. Why? Because he helped 3 non-lottery players, including a second-round pick, become all-stars / superstars in Kawhi, Tony, and Manu. Okay? That's how you win consistently. So here's the thing. All the greatness of Popovich, everyone said, oh, Popovich is the hero of the Spurs system. Well, what happened when Duncan left? That whole system fell to shit. Everything went downhill. All the chemistry that was like, oh, the Spurs, they draft so well. Well, apparently part of drafting well is developing well. So DeJounte Murray might have been an all-star or a superstar if he had actually played with Duncan in his prime and had that locker room camaraderie and that leadership and that nurturing veteran presence that, you know, someone like Tim Duncan can help you quickly get over your ego. But that locker room presence is gone. And for years and years, for nearly 19 years, we were told and convinced that it was Popovich. And it's not. It was Duncan. That's the thing. That's the thing that I say about Duncan and Jordan is, like, they were so dominant as personalities that their personalities were stronger than their coaches. So would the Kawhi situation have happened with Tim Duncan? I don't think so. I think it would have been brushed over. I think it would have been worked out, you know? So here's my case against Kobe, Michael, and LeBron. So Kobe and Michael, honestly, highly flawed NBA players. They won with Phil Jackson. They both have missed. They both had misses in the playoffs. They have missed the playoffs. Michael missed the playoffs, I think, a few years, his first few years. And Kobe missed the playoffs after Shaq left and before the Gasol thing. And he missed a lot of, he missed the playoffs at the end too, when he was recovering from his Achilles tear. So they're both highly flawed players. They both won in the triangle offense. And you know what? It's kind of weird, but they actually are cementing Phil Jackson's and Tex Winter's greatness, because those 2 players, I mean, you know, there's a lot of arguments to be made that they were almost interchangeable. Whereas, you know, you could say, okay, Michael Jordan was a Lamborghini version of Kobe Bryant's Hyundai. You know, like it's a big difference. Like, let's not pretend it's not a small. It's a huge difference. We're talking like 45% field goal shooting versus like 51%. We're talking like all league defender versus a good defender. It's not even freaking close, man. Like we're talking a 6-0 finals record versus what was Kobe's 5-2. 5-2. So it's not like he tried
I'll
really
throw
hard.
I'll throw one at you. Siakam versus Giannis.
That might be too far, but yes.
That's far gone.
So my case against LeBron is simple. LeBron was not the de facto leader in Miami. I think that was definitely D Wade's team, and I don't know how you can be a GOAT candidate if in your prime you were the second best player in a playoff series. I just don't know how that can be. And I don't think Tim Duncan, despite the fact that yes, Kawhi won a finals MVP, that was overrated. It was definitely Duncan's finals MVP to win. And even the year that Tony won it, it was just because the matchup dictated it. So Duncan was always the best player on those teams right up until the end of his prime. Bron and Kobe were passable defenders in their later years. Okay, LeBron had a couple of years where he was a great defender, but I think he's tailed off considerably to save himself for offense. And quite frankly, I don't think Tim Duncan was ever a bad defender. Even as he slowed down, he was a great positional defender. He could anchor your entire defense. He transitioned from 4 to 5. Duncan's dominance was muted by the Spurs system. They didn't play him as many minutes. He sacrificed touches. He sacrificed money in order to win, in order to maximize his odds and longevity. Okay. Yes. And Duncan sacrificed touches when he was fully capable of being a Hakeem type scorer. When he was thinking of leaving the Spurs to go to Orlando, I believe in 2001, 2002, to join up with Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady. I mean, that was going to be.
Oh my goodness!
That was going to be
people
Tim
don't
Duncan.
know about that.
Yeah, that was going to be Tim Duncan unleashed. I mean, I think Duncan was a considerably better player than Shaquille O'Neal, but Shaq got all the headlines because he had those big box scores like the 35 and 20. But Duncan had plenty of those in his early prime. He did. He had like playoff series where he was 30 points, 17 rebounds per game. So his dominance was incredible. And here's the final point. Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe all had to learn how to win. At some point or another, they had to learn from either a coach or a teammate, how do I win in the playoffs? Tim Duncan did not need to learn. He won from day one, and he won on the last day. Yeah. And when he left, all the winning, he took it with him. So that's my point.
Okay, but
you are correct. You are correct. So okay, Skip.
Yeah.
I know your back is up against the wall right now, considering LeBron is your horse in this race, and you're pretty much losing.
Coming from the guy who's got Kobe as his horse, I'd say like has the pot calling the kettle black, friend.
Hey man, Kobe versus LeBron 1-on-1. Kobe's a 53% shooter. LeBron's a
275 pounds. I'll give one-on-one. I give the edge to Kobe, but it's team basketball, man, and like I mean, it's debatable. It's debatable. It's debatable between those two.
And that's why we're here, because that's what we're doing. We're debating. Yeah. So, Skip, since your back is up against the wall, how do you feel about the comments that Mr. Andrew Reece and the one and only Robert Misovic had to say? And don't get at me because I might have to Max Kellerman you.
Well, I was literally about to say the exact same thing Robert said to you, Robert, because I was going to say, all right, you could sit here and say, yeah, Tim Duncan won his first year in the league. How many players were on that basketball team? Was it just Tim Duncan by himself? Like,
yeah, David Robinson. Which
that was not a great team, man. We're David Robinson, Avery Johnson, Mario Ellie. Yeah. Come on, man. That's a very weak. He was the best player as a rookie on a team with David freaking Robinson. Do we forget how good David Robinson was? You want to talk about points? He scored 71 points in a game once. Come on. Yeah, but he was better than him from day one.
That team was that team was a playoff team 2 years before, and LeBron went to a team that was last place. Like they were obviously both lottery picks, but the Spurs had already built their team. They were already established. LeBron had to build his own team from scratch, from a nothing team, from a devastated franchise.
The Bulls were the worst team in the NBA when Michael went there. Yeah, by a mile.
Yeah, so those two guys had to build a franchise from the ground up, which is
but those two guys also, like, I mean, in the case of LeBron, he also played in a very, very, very weak conference. Tim Duncan, throughout his entire career, the Western Conference was way stronger through Duncan's entire career. Yep. There's not one year where the West was weaker, and he came out of that conference. And there's a lot of times, I will tell you right now, you talk about LeBron making it to the finals 9 times. If Duncan was in the East, he would have made it to the finals 15 times. There's no doubt in my mind that those Spurs were in the East. It's every year it's a wipe. it's a wipe, and they're making it to the finals. They're going to lose a lot to the Lakers or whatever. But there's so many times when I was, in the early 2000s where you're watching the Sacramento Spurs or Lakers Spurs, and you're like, shit, these are the two best teams in the league, and they're just going to sweep the Nets or the Pacers. I mean, it was a joke. I think the NBA needs to consider reseeding 1 through 16 for the playoffs.
I think that whole thing is overblown. Not that it's not accurate at all. I think it's a little overblown. Like, these are still really good teams. Like,
but strength of conference matters, man.
It matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter.
Because you're playing these teams 4 times a year. You're playing the other conference twice a year.
You're still talking about elite. Like, if you're talking about high-end playoff teams, you're talking about making the final. Like, yeah, sure. Their first round opponents are easier.
I'll give you an example. Like the Spurs. Like, okay, there's the year that the Golden State Warriors were the 8th seed, and I think they beat the Mavericks, right? That Golden State team probably would have been the 3rd seed in the East.
Yeah, they had 47 wins, if I remember.
Exactly. And I mean, that was good enough to be number 1 in the Atlantic Division that year.
I know,
and
it's crazy.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like the first team, like LeBron making it to the finals is not a big thing, because it's like he is so much more rested by the time he gets to the finals than the team that makes it out of the West, who just had to go through 3 slugfests. I mean, health is everything, right? Yeah. If you have to go through 7-game series with the Mavericks, Spurs, like, I mean, every player who played in the West actually won. It's a great argument to make for Kobe. I mean,
I'd like to say there's no player on this list, including Kobe, that had a meltdown like LeBron did in 2011. I'm sorry. That Dallas series, when he averaged 17 points a game and had 4 fourth quarters where he averaged 2 points. I'm sorry. There's not not even Tim Duncan, not Kobe. Nobody melted down like that in the finals and was that bad with a super team. They had
Simmons-esque.
They had no business losing to Dallas that year. None.
Speaking of LeBron melting down, there's that narrative where they push him. And Robert, you were on the show when we spoke about this, about the media and the NBA. We've spoken about this a lot. They push him towards this. They want to say all the great things about LeBron. Look at him getting carried off because the air conditioning in the finals against San Antonio. What about the mascot?
Okay, how many times did he? How many games did he actually miss in the playoffs over the years?
On how many times did he give up
until 2 years ago?
How many teams did he give up on? How many times did he have to leave a city? Kawhi beat his ass so bad he had to go back home to Cleveland and cry to his mama. Okay, like Robert said earlier, when he was on Miami,
that's got nothing to do with anything.
He's
a free agent. He's allowed to go wherever he wants.
No, that year he won MVP. Like Robert said when he was on Miami, that was not him. He did not deserve that. That should have been Dwayne Wade. And I said that year, that Dwayne Wade should have won the MVP. He was most deserving of that one.
I think I don't think there are excuses for that.
And then he brings up excuses all the time. Oh, I hurt my hand. Oh, this and that happened. This and that happened. You think Kobe would have let that happen? You think Mike would have let that happen? You think Timmy would have let that happen? This ain't LeBron. Come on. We can't even talk about LeBron with the GOAT debate because he doesn't have that mentality. He doesn't have the tenacity. And this, to me, it's absolutely utter bull. Okay?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise. Like, I mean, I was a big champion for Scotty Barnes, and I like Scotty Barnes for a lot of the same reasons that I like Tim Duncan. I just love egoless stars. Like, I like guys who project well, play 2 ways, and are egoless. I like guys who make people better because there's an amplifying effect of that, right? So people talk about how great the Spurs were at drafting. They don't talk about how great the Lakers were at drafting. Why? Because Kobe wasn't even talking to his teammates. Right? Michael was burning his teammates out too pretty hard. I mean, he pushed them and he made a lot of them better. But when you talk to them, it's like a lot of them were hated to come to work, So it's like, again, it's like there's so much that goes into what we call great. Is Bill Russell the greatest player of all time? Is it Wilt because of the stats? Is it Michael because of the peak? That 6-0. It's such a clean argument, right? 6-0, 6-0, and honestly, if you believe that what Michael Jordan did was valuable, you can't make a case for LeBron or Kobe. You just can't, because they were both worse than him at what he did. They're like worse versions of him. There's like a worse version, like a bootleg version, and a bigger, worse version who occasionally melts down mentally. But
I say Mike is the GOAT. Kobe, I just had to bring in because Skip had to bring up LeBron, and that's not even close.
Okay, Kobe is a bootleg version of Mike. There's no arguing that. They were the same position, same player, just not as good. LeBron.
Do I get to catch him on 14th Street with a DVD?
LeBron's
bro.
a different animal. Like he's a bigger guy. He's more of an assist and rebound guy. Really right there, like right next to him on every level. You know who leads playoff win shares all time? You know who leads? LeBron. He's got 55. Michael, I think he's second with like 37.
Well, when you
Now-
are the whole
now-
system, you're going to have a lot of win shares.
Right.
Now,
right.
if you break
Exactly.
it down, the actual per game is actually almost tied. But essentially, my point is they're right there. They're right next to each other. And there's you just because one is built a little bit differently, one's a bit more assist driven. Like I made the Wayne Gretzky comparison. Like, yeah, he's not the scorer. He's not the pure scorer, but he's the everything.
You know what I find? You know what I find amazing? Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Jordan's a 6'6" guard. LeBron is a monster, 6'8", I believe, 300-pound monster, whatever he is. What I found remarkable when I did my research is that Michael Jordan averaged more blocks and steals in his career than LeBron James. That to me is remarkable for a guard. That argument that I couldn't believe when I saw that he's so much better a defensive player than LeBron that it kills any argument for me that LeBron's better. Even if you take the championships away, even if they just player to player, he's better in almost every category except maybe rebounding.
I think that there is an argument there where like the defensive stats aren't totally measurable. Like you can look them up, and that's I think where Mike gets a bit of an edge.
Come on, we all know who's better at defense. Rob, what do you got to say?
Rob,
I think they're both
say?
great defenders, but Mike might have a slight edge.
Go ahead, Rob. I want to hear Rob.
Did you just
Rob,
say slight edge? Did you watch Michael
At their
Jordan play?
peak, at their peak.
No,
No,
not even
no.
close.
I'm not talking
Michael Jordan at his peak was the best defender in the NBA. Like it's ridiculous.
Thank you.
Look, I will say this. There's also another angle of greatness that maybe you have to concede to Michael because of the growth of the game element, right? Globalized the game, being an ambassador for the game. I don't think LeBron James has done that as much as the NBA wants us to believe that. The ratings don't necessarily.
He's polarizing.
He's very polarizing, and I guess like there's that element to it. And Michael was definitely more liked to some degree. Kobe was very hated. Duncan was sort of ignored and sort of buried in San Antonio. I'm not going to make an argument that Duncan had nearly the cultural impact that any one of these players had. I'm just talking straight up basketball, like James Naismith basketball, like 2 hoops, going in the gym, going around, making people better, Bill Russell style. But yeah, if like Jordan has a real case that without Jordan maybe Kobe doesn't exist the way he does, LeBron doesn't exist the way he does, and Duncan doesn't exactly exist in the same league without Jordan. So the financial stability that the NBA has enjoyed post Jordan, it's been unprecedented. It's become the greatest league in the world, fastest growing league in the world. The game is the fastest growing in the world, and there's not one person in this world who knows about basketball who doesn't know about Michael Jordan. So yeah.
It's been really good. Okay, guys, before we sign off,
We got a minute left.
Yep, we got a minute
This has been amazing. One quick question. Well, I got a couple questions, but for the trivia, can you guys name out of the 4 players that we've spoken about, who was the only one to score 40 points against all 29 NBA teams in their career?
Kobe.
Ooh!
I bet it's Kobe.
Nailed
because
it.
he's the scorer. Yeah.
Nailed it. Okay.
He scored all those points. Go ahead. You're getting your hat off.
Out of the 4 players that we mentioned, Robert, I'm pretty sure you're going to nail this one. Who is the only one to never miss the playoffs and have a below 500 season?
Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. This has been phenomenal, guys. I know we don't have much time left. I'm pretty sure we can talk about this for hours upon hours on hours about this, and I'm pretty sure you guys out there online, you guys can get into it. Get at us. Sorry for our technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. You guys know how it is on the Zoom chat. We only have a certain amount of time. Like I said, guys, we can go in for hours on this one. Thank you. Shout out to Robert Misovic for coming on our show. As usual, we always love your great basketball mind. Andrew Reece, great for having you on for your great hot takes, because we love that. Everyone's got to keep it spicy, even though your wife don't think Spicy P ain't that spicy. She call him Mild P. Skip, I love seeing your beautiful face. You guys know where to find us at DougieJays.com. at Dougie J's on Twitter. You guys can find Simon, SimonBroder.com, Amazon.ca. Go check out all his publications. You guys can find me, King Hussein, online, but make sure you guys go check us out. YouTube.com/To The Point Podcast. You on Twitter, To The Point Raps. To The Point on Instagram and Facebook. You guys go check us out. Make sure you guys go down there, click subscribe, click like, let us know how you feel, because we've enjoyed this debate. It's really funny, and this debate is timeless. Skip, man, I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole other part 2 of that debate, but we'll get back to it later.
I think we can too. Yeah, maybe we can. Hey, maybe we can bring the guys back on for that one. But on behalf of myself and Skip, Robert, and Reece, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
peace.